If you grew up watching TV during the 60s, 70s, and 80s, then this face, well, it should be a familiar one to you. We're talking about the wonderful Joanna Pettet, who has had her fair share of ups and downs over the years, including a recent health scare, which I will cover in this video over the course of the next few minutes. But first, let me introduce myself. Hi folks, my name is Dave Sundstrom, and I like to think of myself as something of a pop culture historian, especially when it comes to music, movies, and television. Simply put, I love talking about this stuff. So with that said, let's get rolling. Now let me just state for the record that I haven't seen many of Joanna's films. I did see her in the original comedic version of Casino Royale, but that was a movie that I must admit that I never really cared for. It just didn't work for me. Even though Joanna was very good in the film as Mata Bond, James Bond's daughter. Apparently her mother was supposed to be Mata Hari, the Dutch exotic dancer who was convicted of being a spy for Germany during World War I. I know Joanna best from television. Her early work during the 60s was on shows like Route 66, The Doctors, and Dr. Kildare. But I think it might have been her 1973 television movie, Pioneer Woman, where I really started to notice Joanna. Being a huge Star Trek fan, I started watching the movie because William Shatner was in it. But by the time it was over, I was a bona fide Joanna Pettet fan. And I started noticing her on shows like Police Story, Harry O, and Charlie's Angels. And Joanna made at least 3 appearances on The Love Boat. I also remember her making just as many appearances on Fantasy Island as well. Every time she was a different character, and every time she knocked it out of the park. I think one of the last things that I remember seeing Joanna in was an episode of Knight Rider where she played a character named Joanna St. John. Apparently the episode was meant to be a backdoor pilot for a new series starring Joanna, but for one reason or another, it didn't happen. So enough context. This video is supposed to be about Joanna's current health condition. Like I said, she has had her share of highs and lows over the years. Way back in the 60s, Joanna was close friends with Sharon Tate. In fact, she had lunch with Sharon on the day that she was murdered. I've read that after Sharon's tragic death, Joanna was never quite the same. Still, unlike some of Sharon's other friends, Joanna kept working and lived her life. She was recently married to actor Alex Cord, and they had a son, which takes us to the second major tragedy in Joanna's life, because she lost her son in 1995. The official ruling was a heroin overdose, but from what I understand, her son fell unconscious at a party, and when the others weren't able to wake him, they wrapped him up in a blanket and dropped him off, still unconscious, at a nearby park. Precious hours that could have been used to save his life were sadly lost due to their actions, or maybe better said, inaction. And now late last year, Joanna suffered an agonizing accident that had her friends reaching out asking for everyone to pray for her. Apparently, while searching for rocks in a remote area of California, Joanna suffered some sort of fall and became pinned under a large boulder, and it would be hours before she was found, and then she was rushed to a hospital where she had emergency surgery the next day on her shoulder where they replaced her rotator cuff. Over the past few months, Joanna's recovery has been a slow and painful one. However, a couple of months ago on Joanna's Facebook page, her friend Pam posted an update saying that she was starting to gain some of her mobility back. And then, just a week or so later, Joanna actually posted something herself. It was a picture of her with Sharon, and the caption said, "My sweet Sharon, remembering you always." So it does look like Joanna is getting some mobility back. And perhaps even more importantly, the progress that her body is making is giving her hope and optimism for the future. And after everything that she's been through, I'd say she deserves that. You know, one thing that I failed to mention was that Joanna also made numerous appearances on Rod Serling's Night Gallery during the early 70s. This still is from an episode titled The Girl with the Hungry Eyes. Hey, you know, I've got a couple more videos that I think you might like. There they are. Pick one. I love both of them. You really can't go wrong. But before you go, thank you so much for watching.